now. Bueno, hola a todo el mundo. Estamos aquí, como siempre, Marc Charles y yo, Gerardo Vilches, y en esta ocasión tenemos una charla, una entrevista muy interesante con la autora Lale Westvind, que va a haber publicado su primera obra en nuestro país, en España, Grip, por parte de la editorial Apa Apa. Vamos a mantener con ella una charla que esperamos que sea de vuestro interés. La vamos a mantener en inglés, pero bueno, esperamos que la podáis entender con facilidad. Marc, ¿empezamos?
Pues sí, nada, si queréis, antes de empezar doy 4 pinceladas biográficas, nada, muy rápido, y básicamente voy a nombrar la obra porque la obra de Lale está desperdigada en los últimos 10 años en toda una serie de fanzines y cómics autoeditados o editados con lo que sería la small press, no solo de Estados Unidos, sino del mundo entero. Básicamente Lale nace en Nueva York en 1987 y creo, si no me equivoco, que su primer fanzine lo edita, su primera publicación la edita en 2010, es Titus and the Cyber Sun, de cómic del que Santiago García escribió en su momento en Mandorla Blog, en esa serie de entradas dedicadas a los primitivos cósmicos, de los que supongo que hablaremos durante la charla. Y luego tiene varias series también autoeditadas, 2 números de Hyperspeed to Nowhere, 4 números de Hot Dog Beach, luego tiene los 2 libros que luego ha recopilado con Perfectly Acceptable Press, que es Grip, que es el libro que nos va a centrar hoy, pero luego tiene toda una serie de fanzines más pequeñitos como Now I'm Here, Other Way, Trial One, Yesar, Arcadas, Mary Hacks, con Breakdown Press, Code 3.5, con Colorama Press de Johanna, Berlín. Ella misma se ha encargado de una antología que es Chromazoid, del cual ha sacado 2 números en la que participan distintos colegas y que mezcla música y cómic. Y es autora de la portada de Best American Comics del 2018, la coordinada por Philip Glegner, y se encargó de la portada y de una de las historietas que forman parte de Kramer's Ergot, que es la antología de Sammy Arkham. Y ahora mismo, creo, si luego Lale, si nos lo quiere resolver, está planeado salir antes de que acabe el año Grand Electric Thought Power Mother, que es una recopilación de muchos de estos fanzines que se ha ido editando o autoeditando o publicando por aquí y por allá durante estos 10 años y que va a sacar 2D Cloud. Y básicamente eso es todo hasta el momento.
So, hi, Lale. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine. We both are very excited about the book, about Grip. We really like. Well, I don't know, Marc, maybe we can start talking about the origin of Grip, because Grip is in its origin is a series of 2 things, if I'm not wrong. So I don't know, maybe Lale, you can talk about the origins of the idea of the book, of the story.
Okay. Yeah. So originally it was actually it was going to be a 16-page story, just a short thing, and I can't quite remember the first idea I had, but something about I always wanted to do a story where you look down an alley and you see something mysterious or magical and kind of start a story that way. And then once I started building this idea, I realized pretty quickly that I wanted it to be longer than 16 pages. And I didn't know how long it would be until it was finished. So when I was working with Matt, Perfectly Acceptable, I would email him every few months and he'd ask how's the book doing? I said, oh yeah, it's going really well, but now it's 80 pages, or now it's like, so it would continue. And at a certain point, he I think he's the one that suggested, or maybe it was like a deadline thing. I wasn't going to have the whole book finished, so we decided to publish it in 2 books, and figuring out what would be a good place to stop the story for that. So yeah, the first edition was 2 small, they're upstairs, but like that big, risograph printed books with screen printed covers, which was pretty cool because it was still in the world of like small press, and made it a little bit of like an art object, I guess. So I still like those very much. So that's the original version. Yeah.
Okay. I think that in some point of the work process, you remove the words.
Oh yeah.
Why did you do that then?
I always have this thing about not wanting to make redundancies between the text and the image. I think that can be like a failure in comics. And then the other part is I have made comics before where there is a fault of too much wordiness to the image, so if the reader has to go and read this large paragraph of text and then they're looking at the image, then there's like a disconnect there as well. It's not as fluid of a like absorption of media, I guess. So there were some moments where the text, maybe it just added some clarity of like logic or something, but then that didn't seem to be as important as the whole page on its own. So I had that was how the decision was made. It was just like, no, this works. It still works without text, and maybe it works better because then the image as a whole single thing is more interesting. I think a fault of mine as an artist sometimes is that maybe I value image over narrative. That's the type of artist that I am, or the type of cartoonist maybe. I'd like to kind of explore the other side of that some more. But yeah, so that's, yeah.
And it was at an early stage that you decided not to use the words. I mean,
yeah, it was
at that moment.
It was as I was sitting down to put the lettering in the first issue, and I was just like, I don't, and I talked to my girlfriend about it a little bit, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to. She was like, yeah, don't do it. Like, if you think that's what needs to happen, then like if I felt like I was doing it for, I don't know, is that like trust? That book Hacks also had words at one point. There's an earlier version of it with text, and I'm actually quite fond of the text in that, and it will be released in this in Grand Electric Thought Power Mother, in that collection. The version with text and without color is in that collection. But when I released that one too, I wasn't sure whether it would be appreciated at all, but it was. So that kind of gave me like, okay, like people do like this. They can still engage with it. It's not confusing or anything. It makes it a little bit more like a children's book, I think, but I'm also okay with that too.
I think it's not confusion at all, but at the same time, when you decided to not to use words, I think that the narrative going to an abstract, some kind of abstract level, it's more ambiguous than a book with words. So I don't know if you are okay with that, or you have the story pretty clear in your mind.
Yeah, no, it was the second half of the book, I knew vaguely what would happen, but I wasn't totally certain. And once the decision was made to leave out the words, that affected the process of page layout and what happened. And it did leave things a little bit more open-ended. And then I think the other thing was that most of the scenes in the second book probably would not have had words anyways, because it is happening in this like internal space. She's alone. There's no one to talk to. So thinking of it, I do like film a lot. So thinking about what does narration do in film, you know, and when do you use narration, when don't you? Because it, just like text in comics, there is like an interruption that happens. If it's not done, like if it doesn't need to be there, then it's probably interrupting the image in some way. But yeah, so it allows for this other space to happen for sure, which I do like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that it's quite obvious that really punches when someone sees your comic books for the first time is all the energy that the drawing communicates or transcends. It's like an electric feeling, and it's quite, I don't know how you get to that style, but because it's so obvious since when you see, when I'm checking and looking for your first comic books, it's quite obvious that you can see all this electricity in your drawing style. I don't know where does it come from?
I think at this point, at least, because people have said so, I almost feel like I have to present that or something a little bit. But I don't know where I move a lot as a person, like even when I'm talking, or you know, I'm a very energetic person. I like motorcycles, I like cars, I like to ride my bicycle, I like skateboarding. Like I'm a very movement is like one of my favorite things about being alive, I think. And even that's like changing a little bit too as I get older, so that's interesting. Like, you know, I think that's normal, relation to my life and my person and how that affects the work, and again, like wanting to explore other things. But and I studied animation in art school, so I think that has a lot to do with it. And the way that I approached animation in art school, with, you know, you have like small exercises, I was like, okay, what is the like craziest way I can depict this movement? That's sort of, it's always just like, what's the most exciting way that I could do this? Just for fun, I guess. I don't know. I'm like, why not? I guess like I want to. So sometimes I spend a lot of time just in sketches, trying to figure out what is the most exciting. I get that's the only. Yeah, I try to make it exciting, I guess. Like yeah, I don't know. That's why I like comic books in general, I think. You know, the exciting image. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
Do you have any reference, any inspiration for that kind of movement representation, or is something that just come to your mind in some
cartoons
moments?
Like animated cartoons, like you know, Tex Avery and Bugs Bunny and what, all the very classic cartoons that I think, like watching those now, I'm still just like totally amazed. Like, how did they come up with this stuff? And I know they had a lot of people and they were doing storyboarding and everything, but like the visual gags that they came up with in those short animated shorts are still, to me, like absolutely amazing. The type of like dream logic that happens, that it makes absolutely no sense, but when you view it, you accept it, you know, it's believable. So that's a big one for sure. Yeah, watching cartoons as a kid, right? Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah.
So sorry.
So no, it's okay. I just saw the cover of the book.
The power of the hand. That's and that the jobs made by the hand. This is an important message in this book, isn't it, Lale?
Yeah. I think yeah, there was there's all these shifts all the time, but there is a kind of I think there are forms of classism against people who work with their hands or different jobs. I find it strange that the hour of a human life is worth more depending on what the task is kind of a really strange idea. And why is it that, and I know the arguments for why that is, whatever. but I think that idea, I value that type of work extremely. I wish I had I still think of maybe going to trade school and becoming a mechanic or something, but I have like too many hobbies basically. But to me, that I have like extreme admiration for people who work for their hands, and not only in the trades, like also that's why I wanted to put the server in there or whatever, but for any type of job. And it's not meant to be necessarily like a pro work book, but it's pro people's labor and people's effort, and when people try to do something really well despite whatever, that's I think that's honorable, and I think that's something that should be valued and honored, rather than like it's kind of like dishonored, especially in the US. I think it's changing now. I don't even want to go there conversation wise because it's so dark, and but yeah I wanted to make something. To me, it's like so obvious why it's cool when people work with their hands in any kind of way, but it's something that we seem to take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because in work, handwork is usually represented as something alienating for the people, but in your book it's totally it's totally different, because work is empowering. It's a way to be free, to be powerful, to be happy.
So that's true, and I talked to a friend about that. He was saying like, oh, I've had jobs and I just like hated it and it was horrible. So I think this is almost like I think that happens when a person is not valued for their work and they're not allowed to like be an artist in any kind of way within their work, or so this is like it's like a utopic version, obviously, of what work could be. Obviously there are jobs that are very alienating and horrible for people, and I think it's because the people are treated badly and they're not valued for their work, and they're not allowed to be human in that job. They're not even allowed to excel. I mean, oftentimes if you excel, it means they would have to pay you more, so they'll do anything they can to prevent you from, like, there's all kind like, but yeah, so it is sort of utopic in this book. But I had the little thing in there. She's like working at the post office. The post office can be really a dehumanizing job, but it has benefits. Some people like it. There's like trade-offs. But even at the post office, she's replaced by drones. But it's only inferred. There's like some posters on the wall. It's not really stated. But yeah.
Yeah, that's tonight while you were sleeping, we were talking with Gerardo, because here it was early in the morning, so we were talking about that your book Grip, it's a love letter to the people that love their job, and the job not related with the market regulations or whatever. And this is quite obvious. And this, when the woman enters at the beginning of the book in this crack on the wall, it's like to enter in a wonderland, some type of wonderland, whatever, where the people can realize or can do whatever they want, or they target in life, it's to do their job. I mean, not a job related with economics or whatever.
Right, right.
It's a life job,
Yeah.
something related.
That's the thing that's so crazy is there's this idea that like, oh, if people didn't need money, they wouldn't work at all because they're so, it's like, okay, maybe some people would not work, or maybe some people would take a break or something, but human beings like to make things and we like to invent. Like if you look on YouTube, how many people are just like showing you how to do something for free, basically? Maybe they're like monetizing the video. They're probably not making that much, some of it, but like people want to do things with their hand. They want to share because we get bored. So it's not, so that's a false, it's not true that we wouldn't do anything. We don't need to be like tortured into doing these things, you know? Yeah. But yeah, I hadn't thought of her entering a new, well, you know, it's like that's the other thing. Everything in the book without text, I guess it can function in multiple ways. So yeah, it is like a doorway. It's also like I was thinking about like having too much energy sometimes in your hand, you know, not being able to sit still, and sometimes you can like break things by mistake if you don't, you know. So feeling like that as a kid, knowing other people who felt like that as a kid. And so it's like you see children sometimes with like too much energy, right? So they don't do well in school because they can't sit and stare at the wall the whole time or whatever. So that type of energy, so her just learning how to harness that type of energy. So that's what that whole hand thing was about. And the twister, you know, and that's what it is. It's like you're a human being, you have all of this energy. Okay, what are you going to do with it? Hopefully you can do something that nourishes you, you know.
As a cartoonist, I don't know if you find this kind of energy that your protagonist finding in working with her hands in the drawing. If you when you are drawing, you find this kind of happiness.
Yeah, sometimes I try to like seek, you know, if I'm working at like very long days, it gets harder and harder and it becomes like painful to finish. But I find like for the beginning sketches, the rough sketches, the best thing is like really fast, loose stuff, because then you're lit. And then if you can ink your drawings closest to those original pencils, then you can still keep that movement. And then in inking, the hardest part is like it's almost the opposite. You have to like that stillness. That's very hard for me. I mean, even if you like drink too much coffee that morning, then you get a tremor or whatever, you know, that's pretty interesting to me, that difference between pencil and inking. That's yeah, that whole thing is endlessly fascinating. The inks and the pencils, and you know, I understand why people skip the inking altogether. But yeah, I go like that, like. But yeah, in drawing, I try to put movement and speed into it. That's what feels good if I can do that. But I don't always get that. Like I can look through the book and say, oh, maybe that drawing I remember. Like sometimes you get stuck if you can't find that energy. And then the drawing doesn't come out well, and then you have to kind of like mess with it for a while. Yeah.
It's quite curious because when I read your comics, they remind me a lot to this classic Metal Harlem or whatever, no? Moebius and the Juliet and these people. But your drawing style is quite opposite. I mean, but it's quite more electric, more vibrational or more spiral, and they are quite static at the same time. But you put your characters, you always put them in deserts or forests or whatever. So maybe that's something that vibrates, or that reminds me to these people that did these sci-fi comic books at the end of the 70s or whatever. I don't know if it's something, there's a link there.
Yeah.
Lale.
Yeah, in high school, I saw like one copy of the Inkel. It was in German. It was just this guy showing me, and I like was totally amazed. It was in full color, and it was, you know, this big. And I had seen like Tintin, and but this is so different from that. You know, this was like psychedelic sci-fi comics. So that was, and then in college, I was in like a used bookstore in Milwaukee, whatever, on a trip, and it was a huge used books. And I asked the guy, I said, do you know who Mobius is? Do you have any Mobius comics? And he had a whole bin of old metal Hurlant. Have you? So I bought some of those. So that was definitely an inspiration. Just for like the scope and the scale that you could do, because those comics are almost like the equivalent of like big budget Hollywood, like, you know, they're like special effects, and the setting and the artwork is always like very like rendered, you know. Yeah, so definitely an inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that comics have something in common with your work, which is some kind of search for illumination, spiritual illumination, or some kind of revelation, which is something that you can find also in J.C. Jacobs or Michael DeFort's comics. I don't know if you feel that your work is close to theirs, but I see some kind of connections here.
I don't know if that's like we're all pretty close in age, myself, Jesse Jacobs, and Michael DeFort. So maybe this is like the new type of non-religious spirituality or something, you know. I don't know. I had like both of my parents are not religious, but they're really into, like, they have their own form of mysticism or whatever that is like a combination of everything. So that's but I get both of them are very like, you know, the idea is that this experience of being here is a spiritual experience, right? Like this, there's something which I think that would be hard to argue against, even if you have like terrible, boring days or whatever, you know. It's like that just to be here is really sublime and surreal and total, because if the alternative is like nothingness or no consciousness at all, then this is really like something miraculous, right? So that kind of thing. Maybe they should. I haven't talked to either of them about that type of idea. I'm familiar with both their work, obviously. Michael DeForge is a total genius. I can't believe, like, every time I read his work, I just like, I can't believe it. Yeah, and Jesse Jacobs, I totally get his like the like rainbow kind of acid trip cosmic experience thing going on, you know, the creatures under the stairs and in the basement and stuff. Yeah, but yeah, so maybe it's just a generational thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the shared LSD experiences or something. I don't know if they've done that. I don't know.
Maybe it's something also related with the last report of about the climate exchange that the climate change that they published last Monday. So
Well,
it's something about new consciousness, maybe, or something that is like a gap, a generational gap, a new consciousness, something like that. Do you agree? Maybe?
I don't know how that is. Like, I think right now we're in a totally, like, when I made Grip and right now are so totally separate in my mind. Right now we are like, I don't know. Yeah, it's this is like I talk with my partner all the time about, it's like, okay, we can't, like, you can't plan for anything in the future in the same type of society and marketplace as we did in the past, like, because that system seems to be crumbling, or like it's like necessary that it be replaced right now, you know. So the options are, so I don't know, I have no idea what type of work will be made going forward from this moment. I think there's a lot of like, I don't know that I don't know what type of work I will make from, it's very, yeah, I don't know. It's a different, it's beyond just like a global consciousness or something, right? Right now it's like a serious time for action against the strongest powers that are, you know, it's, they like, I can't even put this, how do you have any type of social revolution against the largest military force in the world,
Yeah,
and the largest and most militarized police force in the world? And those are some of the people who want to keep things the way they are, that has us set on a course for total destruction. Like that,
yeah.
that's a, and it has to be done in like a subversive way, I think, because obviously you cannot fight that level of firepower with firepower. Like you can't beat a war machine that way. It's just not, you know. So that's where my thinking is. So that's like a totally different, and I don't know, I'm still thinking on that. So it's complicated. I mean, I have different ideas about that, but
You are.
I don't know what kind of work will be done now. Yeah, so maybe that work is just about like waking up to the preciousness of this place. Yeah, I don't know.
Talking
It's like
about the stuff, you are reminding me Eleanor Davis' last book. Have you read it?
Yeah, I loved that book. Yeah.
The same kind of stuff and ideas about the near future.
Yeah, I think a lot of people everywhere right now are being forced to think about those things. And what's absurd, right, is that there are groups of people that have been in that fight for like 100 years. And now things have gotten bad enough that now people who were kind of insulated from those things, they're also realizing like, oh yeah, we have to, you know. So it's almost embarrassing for the rest of us that it's taken this long to, I mean, it's shameful maybe, right? But that's what you get from segregated societies, you know. That's why we need as much like integration of voices and listening as possible, you know? Anyways.
That's it. At the same time, it just passed, you start with this book at 2018, don't you? So it's just been 2 years and everything has changed a lot. So 2 years and a half, something like that. It's been crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even in this book has a slightly more elevated ideas than other books, right? This book, I was like, I don't want to have any violence in this book.
That's it.
Because I was questioning that, like, what is it to depict, you know? So there's just like and now I'm at a point where, you know, the problem, I guess, or like the task that makes it difficult to be an artist is the more conscious you become, the more you're forced to be, I mean, you could just not care, but but if you think of your work as like an extension of your person and wanting to affect things positively, then you're forced to, you have to match your intention with your output. And so you have to think more about what you're, you know, it becomes increasingly more specific. And then matching creativity to that task I think it takes discipline, I guess, you know.
Yeah, so from Grip, what's going on? I mean,
Right now,
what are you working right now? Because it's another paradigm, isn't it?
yeah, I just finished putting that collection together. That took a while, and then I'm working on some smaller things, which I think are still in the realm of fantasy, or you know, but just kind of to give myself a break a little bit. I made like a kind of fantasy comic, short 8-page something. I don't know what's, I might take a little break. So maybe in a couple years, see what happens. I don't know. I don't know. No answer. We'll see what happens. Unless I can figure out like, okay, what is the story that might inspire whatever the solution is. But I don't know. I there's lots of things to do. I can prop up other artists, other authors, you know.
There are a lot of things going on. And I think Grip has been a big gap on your career. I mean, it's been a new step, have you passed over? Yeah.
Yeah.
How come?
Yeah. How come what?
How come Grip has become a new step? What has changed since then? I mean, has been anything else that because you were in Europe, you were in Berlin, in Colorama, you were in Angoulême with Chifumi.
That's all fun. That was all fun stuff. That was just fun stuff. That's
fun stuff.
That was just like, that's like that just gives me a lot of gratitude for, you know, how lucky I am that I get to, that people like the work enough that I get to go to other places, and that's just like amazing stuff. I think Grip is also my I don't say this enough probably, but my girlfriend, my partner is she's an electrician in a union in Philadelphia, and her experience, I guess right around when I started Grip, she was just getting into this union, and it's like, I don't, like 20 years behind, maybe more, in terms of sexism and gender and whatever. So hearing her talk about that, and like it almost seems for parts of the world, or for certain like areas, you think like, oh, like sexism is a non-issue now, everything's fine, but like that's not true. So she's dealing with stuff that is so basic and stupid, and so she's actually become a kind of activist and organizer within that, and trying to, because in the US, union jobs are the best paying jobs, and they actually have benefits, so it's really, really valuable, and there are a lot of women who want these jobs, and they're actively being prevented from getting those jobs by the people who are already in the union. So that's a whole, so that probably had a lot to do with it as well. Seeing that, just like seeing what problems are where, and then like, okay, how can I depict the opposite of this? Because there's that question, you know, there's things that art can do in relation to a problem. Either you are like depicting the problem, because maybe people don't know about the problem, or you're depicting a possible solution, or you're convincing people that there is a problem, or, you know, and deciding like, okay, what's the most effective path? It depends on where everybody is at, but I think generally a like positive expression is maybe more effective. I don't know, I can't speak on that.
There is another
in art, I mean, not
there is another really interesting point, which is the way how you depict women in your comics, because in mainstream comics, usually you can find empowered women the super in superhero comics and so on. But I have always felt that even if there are some interesting women characters, they are always under the male gaze. But in your comics, it's totally different because your women are strong in a totally different way.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Well, they're like real people.
Yeah.
This page is funny because this is based on my mother and her friend Chidem, who's kind of like whenever my mom and Chidem get together, it's like a meeting of witches or something. It's like weird stuff is going on. But yeah, like I think you're right. I think at least, and it is something that's always bothered me a little bit when I was younger, especially. It's like I don't want to be that character. So I always gravitated towards like if there was an animal type character or something that seemed more gender neutral, and I could be that. You know, like, if there was like a wolf man or something, then it's not necessarily a man or a woman, or like it's not a sexualized woman. Yeah, I think I try to draw real people, and I do want to depict female strength and female power. I mean, even now, like there was one of these meetings about women in the trades, and there was a representative there from of iron workers, and he said that the job was just too hard and women didn't want to do hard work, which number one is not true. Women want these jobs. And number two, we have like female bodybuilders now. Like I remember things I was told as a child about like, oh, don't do too many push-ups because your arms will get too big, and women are not supposed to have big arms. So this kind of like enforcement against my physicality, you know, what I was able to do with my own body, you know, that's like, again, this seems like such a old conversation, but unfortunately still has to be had in some places, you know. But so yeah, I don't think much of it at all, actually. That's just how I draw women. I base the women in my comics on myself and on my friends and on people I admire, and so these are just like real people. And I find it like sad and laughable that this is still something worthy of comment, you know. But like I said, it's still like that sometimes. So that, like, that's just so unfortunate that because I'm not like, you know how crazy this is.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, so that's just something like the fact that I don't think, anyways. Yeah.
Well, it's something that you can see when you go to the movies and see, I don't know, Black Widow or Wonder Woman and so on.
Yeah.
And you realize that power and strength in women characters are always depicted as beauty. And it's something curious and funny at the same time because, well, maybe you can show a women superhero that are ugly in the terms, in the terms of you know, the society terms, but you can hardly see that. You always see like models and so on.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, Hollywood is like the arm of the machine or something, you know. So it's sort of, it's a very low bar. It's unfortunate that those films are still so popular. I mean, I kind of get it. They're exciting, I guess. I haven't seen any of them. I have a friend who he said that I would enjoy some of them or whatever. And the other thing that's tricky about this conversation too is that the people act as if the other option is like to divorce women from their sexuality completely.
Yeah.
And that's also insane. It's like we're just incapable of nuance lately. It's like, you know, like a woman can be sexy and not be a sex object. I can't feel crazy having but yeah, it's just
Well, in fact, I find some of the scenes, the sequence in Grip, with intense sexual energy when she's working.
yes.
I find it something related to sex.
Yeah, this is also like, I am a lesbian. I mean, or whatever. Technically, I'm pansexual or whatever. I don't, but I'm in a lesbian relationship right now, and there's lots of moments in the book where I put like little jokes with myself, like lesbian or gay sex jokes in the for me that I don't know. I think some like queer people pick up on it. I don't know that's true, but so it's cool that you picked up on this kind of, but I mean, you could make the argument too that like in the cosmic aspect or universal aspect, creativity, sexuality, physicality, all of that is the same type of energy. It's only this like the reason that we've categorized things is so that they can be capitalized on, you know, commodified. Otherwise, it's the same stuff. That it's like a strange thing that maybe it's capitalism, but to divorce these different energies from the human experience, and you make things taboo, and then you can use it to sell Coca-Cola or cheeseburgers or whatever, you know, it's really, and defining what that is. Like, for how long has it, like, why is it defined for us that a sexy man looks like this and a sexy woman looks like that, or a man looks like this and a woman looks like, you know, it's very strange delineations that are not real, I don't think.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. My partner argues often that things might be better if we just like dispense with gender completely. Not in the sense that like everybody is wearing like a gray tunic, but really so that you know, anybody can express any way that they want to, and we just don't, you know, we don't question it. And I mean, that would be ideal. People would be really, a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that, obviously, because people like to know what's going on, but we'll see what happens.
Well, Marc, I think you wanted to ask about the color, right?
Yeah, that's it. Because you were working with.
We forgot.
Yeah, I forgot completely. I was listening quite concentrated to you, Lale, and it's quite interesting, the conversation. But yeah, the color, not related with gender, but the color. I don't know if it's related with gender or not. But no. It was a risograph publication at the beginning. Yeah. So, but I don't know, how do you work with color in this comic book? You told us that you decided not to use works, but how do you decided to use the color, to work the color in this script, not to use black and white or use the color in risograph? Sorry, I just started talking.
I don't remember if that was I think I'd seen some of Perfectly Acceptable books before, and the printing was beautiful, the colors were beautiful, so I was like, oh, I want to try that. I would love to make a book with these people. So, and I like the palette, red, blue, and yellow. Any, you know, less colors means less money, hopefully. It also has like it's a really easy way to differentiate things. I think color is useful in that way. If you have a really complicated image, you can clarify certain things. You can kind of like code different things so that the eye understands. Like, oh, okay, she's always pink. So every time I see the pink, I know what I'm looking at. so that's useful. And I had wanted to do more, originally I'd wanted to do more color mixing and variation, but then I don't, it's something that, it's just my own preference, but if you have, I really like the minimal palette. I like it most maybe when it's just like reds, unmixed yellows and blue, that kind of graphic thing. I think because if you can look at the whole page and see everything very clearly, that's very useful, I think. I don't know, did I answer the question? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I mean, it looks quite handcrafted at the same time. Color. I don't know if you, yeah.
Yeah, I always loved the old comics, the way they were printed.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you as well if you have something new for this European edition with Apa Apa. I don't know if you are changing anything of grip or no.
No changes.
No, please.
There was no time to, for me, I just had too many things going on, but I also I think it's like trade relations or just shipping costs and everything has become really increasingly complicated and expensive. So just for the purpose of having grip on the other side of the Atlantic, I think is really great. So I'm really excited about that. I did change the cover, but it's the same cover design. It's just different colors. I thought of it as like the night version or the moon version or something. So the colors are inverted kind of, but otherwise it's the same book. I hope that's not a disappointment, but yeah, I think it's really just for more availability in Europe, hopefully. Although that depends too on like Spain's relation with everybody else. And, you know.
No, I think here in the European Union, it will be quite easy to get the book, not only in Spain, but even in France or Germany, whatever.
Yeah, I hope so. And for distribution as well.
Yeah, it will be quite easy. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's dependent on publishers smuggling books in their suitcase on the airplane.
Definitely.
What everybody's been doing for 20 years.
Definitely. Yeah, quite cool. I don't know. It will have some extras, I think, the book. I don't know if we can talk about it, but at least maybe they can read an article written by Gerardo and I think an interview made by me with you, Lale.
Cool.
And I think that's a bonus, an interesting one.
Oh, yeah, yes, that is true. That's true. That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah,
No worries.
And that's actually something I was really excited about to have in the book. That's the first time. I mean, the Grip is like the first book of mine that I did not publish myself. So it is really nice to have work out there that also has some critical discussion of the work in it. That's very exciting to me. And that feels really lucky.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's the first time that one of your books is going to be published in Europe?
I believe so. It's also very exciting for me.
Yeah.
And I love Spain, so I hope I can visit.
Oh, we too.
Yeah, now it's not so easy to come, but if you come, you are more than welcome.
Yeah,
here we have Maria Medem.
I know, she's so cool. I love her. I know, I want to visit her in the south. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Right.
I won't say this. Is this off the record yet?
We can stop recording now if you prefer.
Yeah, we can.
So bye, people. See you now. We will talk a little bit.
We can finish here. So thank you very much, Lale. Thank you for all your people that are listening this interview. Esperamos que os haya gustado y sobre todo que os haya motivado a echar un vistazo a Grip, al trabajo de Lale Westvind, que os aseguramos que merece mucho la pena.
Thank you. Bye.